Alright guys, TacticalRab again today. Hope you're doing well and enjoying your day so far. Crazy development in Rostermania last night with Toronto Ultra effectively confirming that the deal is done. Buyout agreed, Scrappy and Envoy are expected to be joining the Los Angeles Thieves for next season based on various factors that Ultra explain in quite some detail. The big question though remains, will Thieves get the full team that they desire? Can they get HyDra off Cloud9? Will they properly form the super team as was rumoured a couple of weeks ago? Very much interested in your thoughts in the comments below. Hit the like button if you enjoy. Subscribe if you're new as always, I greatly appreciate it. So much to get into, of course, today. Starting briefly with the Vancouver Surge, JKL talks about them being Nastie is going to join. So that apparently is a done deal. O4 and aBeZy are to stay. Nastie is coming in alongside aBeZy, right? So we know for sure, given that Scrap is going to Thieves, that they no longer require Nastie's services. He was very good towards the end of the season. I think it's honestly great to see him on a team of this kind of potential caliber. So O4, aBeZy, Nastie, +1. That is, of course, the rumour. And there are options alongside O4 in that SMG role. Apparently, HyXy is the man they're looking for. So, pretty interesting stuff. Look, I think HyXy's a very solid, valuable player. I'm a little bit surprised in some way that effectively what Surge have done here is got rid of Hook and brought HyXy in. I'm not necessarily sure, especially on a game like maybe Black Ops 6, super fast-paced, whether a guy like Nero, a guy like Hook, or, you know, a really fast-paced SMG player that can drop some engagements and impact on the map, that might have been the type of player that I'm considering, but, you know, then again, maybe O4 can do some of that work. So it's interesting what Rambo's cooking up over there, but I'm pretty excited to see this, to be honest, and forming, of course, what would be a majority European roster with Nastie, HyXy, aBeZy, and then, of course, you know, big man, medium man, whatever, O4, as well to round out the team. This was a big update as well yesterday here from Gataga. So of course he was asked the question on stream, are you guys signing HyDra? What's going on? Like, are gentlemates joining the CDL first of all, and if you are you going to get HyDra in? Now basically what he says was, you know, zero chance or whatever he said, basically no chance that's happening this year, but he did go on to say that he's pretty confident they can get that gorilla spot. At least that is the current theory, that M8, effectively M8s, whatever people abbreviate them to, but gentlemates basically are going to try and come in, get the gorilla spot, and then potentially relocate it, I would imagine, somewhere else. What they would do with their roster is very interesting, right? Just because aBeZy, who's Belgian but French-speaking, he's on Surge. Obviously, Linz is probably going to stay on G2 on Rocker, and HyDra, it doesn't seem like he's going to be able to get him. And obviously, if you are HyDra and you're seeing the option to join Los Angeles Thieves with Scrappy, or you're seeing the option to join gentlemates with effectively HyDra and friends, then, you know, it's obviously a bit of a no-brainer. I think in the ideal world, I think for probably all parties here, gentlemates come in, because I don't want to see gorillas around the league anymore, I'll be perfectly honest. Like, I want them to go. So ideally for me, gentlemates come in, they get the job done, and then maybe HyDra plays for Thieves for a couple of years, wins a couple of championships, gets a ring, another one on the board maybe, and then joins gentlemates in a couple of years' time. So that might be one of the more ideal scenarios, and of course the French scene in general is mega, and you know, this is like the Carmine Corps fans at their event that they've done at their arena in France. So, you know, people are saying this in the seed, and of course, it's a similar story for gentlemates. So, you know, I'm excited for the prospect of this. I'm not going to lie. We shall see if they get that deal done, because Gorillas, we're pretty sure, are going to be willing to sell. Let's talk about Shifty. Shifty TV, Mr. If the Bag is Right. He's trying to do it, apparently. Is he trolling? That's a question. I don't think he's going to go and play challenges. But after winning the World Series of Warzone and after talking about it and teasing it for some time, Shifty says, free agent for the Black Ops 6 CDL season. If I don't do it now, I never will. So Shifty may have come to the realization on some level that there's more to competitive COD than Warzone. And look, he's going to try and make it in the CDL. This is very interesting. Obviously, Parasite's like, this has got to be cap. Shifty's like, I need the ring. So let's get it going. Now, is this going to happen, right? Is Shifty going to get an opportunity? We know that Biffle, we're pretty sure, or at least we think that some teams at least thought about giving him an offer. And also, if you are a team towards the bottom of the standings, why not? Maybe on some level, right? Bring him in, see how he does. Because, you know, from a pure talent perspective, could he hold his own? Maybe. Would he be anywhere near good enough to compete on, like, a consistent CDL level, especially in the respawn modes? Probably not. But I guess you're never going to know unless you find out. And also, this is what Clayster's talked about. He said, hey, you know, give me some of those Warzone guys. I'll teach them. I'll, you know, kind of mold them into being the players we need them to be. And, you know, as Roddy says, Cloud9 might as well do it for a laugh, right? I mean, you know, they need some players right now. They're struggling to fill out their roster. Kismet, Skyz, obviously Sib is gone, but, you know, who knows what's happening there? Is Sib going to come back? And also, this is the thing for Toronto. We're 99% sure Toronto are not getting Sib. Neither are Thieves. Mainly because Toronto don't have the money, and we're going to talk about that in a second, and Sib is a restricted free agent. If Sib was released fully, then sure, maybe there's something in that. But it is plausible that Sib, either Cloud9 are forced to take it back, or something else happens here. Even Cloud9 Call of Duty's Twitter hit does say yo at Shifty TV. So that'll be an interesting story to follow. Frankly, I don't think much is going to come of this, but it's interesting nonetheless to see that, you know, some of the top Warzone guys want to come over to the Call of Duty League. Whether that's going to work out or not, that's a question. And as we're going to see later today, Clayster might be trying to do it the opposite way around. But let's talk about this Toronto Thieves situation, because yesterday, Adamu, who we're going to see a tweet from him in a second with some more detail on this, literally tweets out a handshake emoji before then deleting it shortly after. I didn't actually see this, so unless JoeDeceives has photoshopped this image, then this was real. I don't imagine that he has. So this was an interesting one, just because if you're a Toronto fan, you are seeing your star player in Scrappy get sold basically elsewhere, and no Toronto fan is going to be happy about that eventuality, right? As we know full well. And then you've got your owner, founder, CEO on the timeline be like, oh yeah, deal done, boys, handshakes agreed, we've got the bag, effectively. At least that is the implication of this tweet anyway, so I can't imagine that too many Toronto fans were especially happy about this. But to be fair to Adam, he was then very transparent over the coming hours on exactly what was going on. But then we saw this from Jake Hale. The agreement is agreed. Whether the money is transferred, whether the players are transferred, that's another question. But Los Angeles Thieves and Toronto have apparently come to an agreement about the transfer of Scrap and Envoy, right? And this is the talking point about Envoy, because he spent a couple of years on the Los Angeles Thieves, won a world championship with them, leaves to go to Toronto, and then a year later comes back with the star assets, right? Like, you know, people are talking about Envoy being like a sleeper cell agent or whatever. The guy's gone in there, Toronto, won an event, sabotaged their team by playing bad or something, and then convinced Scrappy that coming to Thieves is the way to go. And we know that Scrap and Envoy seem to get along very well. We've seen that for some time now, over the last couple of months especially. Seems that they're very close. And like, I don't know if it was Envoy's plan all along to eventually return to the Los Angeles Thieves, but I will say Thieves have timed their budget year perfectly. Not only did they cut budget for the most recent season, form actually what in the end was a very competitive team, second at the World Cup, fourth at the World Championship, which was still a better season than many of the other organizations had in the league. Not only did they do that, but now they've got the timing perfectly when they do have more money to spend, when the other teams are starting to make budget cuts, and that means that some of their players are available. And that's what Adam goes on to say. There's been a lot of speculation. I'm not going to confirm or deny anything right now. So look, we can pretty much tell what's happened here, but I thought this was very interesting to hear, because I think Toronto fans, as frustrated as they will be about this, and many of them will be, you know, changing their allegiance possibly to the Los Angeles Thieves. It depends, you know, whether you're a fan of the city and all these other factors, right? But, you know, I'm sure that some people will follow Scrap and Envoy potentially over to that team, and some Toronto fans will, you know, a lot of Toronto fans will say Toronto fans, and they're hoping for the best for their organisation. And I think he was very honest about this, that in the CDL side, we simply cannot sustain the contracts that we have. They were made under different circumstances in the prior CDL model, and the best path forward is to reset and let everyone explore their options. So, you know, basically he's saying that in paying these guys too much cash, they can't afford it anymore, which is true for many of these different teams. And I get it, right? I mean, we talked about before that Envoy was potentially offered like 400k to go to Boston, so Toronto must have paid him something at least reasonable compared to that number in order for him, because if they were offering him 100k, then, you know, he would have just said, well, 4 times the money to go to Boston. At least in my head, I'd have probably done that. And even though Scrappy was kind of like extended after his rookie season, you'd imagine that he wasn't exactly on peanuts. So then he says, our players have been incredibly cooperative. We lowered buyouts dramatically to give them the freedom to choose their next steps, and many have already done so. And this is, of course, talking on the CDL side as well. So this is very interesting stuff, and, well, it makes sense that he's tweeting this now after the deal is agreed. I think we can be pretty confident the deal has been agreed by the fact that he's saying this, because you wouldn't say this if you were still in a negotiating position, right? And that's what's quite interesting about this development, because clearly Toronto cannot sustain those contracts. So they need to get those guys off their books. That's basically what he's saying, right? We can't afford to keep those guys around on the contracts we have. We need somebody to, you know, buy them off us effectively. We need somebody to take that contract over. So if you're Thieves, you're seeing, you know, if you knew this, and maybe they did know this on some level, that basically Toronto need to sell Scrappy because they can't afford his contract and they want some money in, then Thieves are in a very competitive position to basically negotiate that buyout down, which it seems is what they have potentially agreed to do, right? We're talking something, at least for Scrappy, the rumor is like 200k buyout, something in that ballpark. Last year, it probably would have been double or triple that. So Thieves have arguably played a blinder here. They took their reset budget year, now they've got some cash, and now Toronto are taking their budget year and doing effectively a rebuild that Thieves did. Thieves are in a position to capitalize. And I talked about this weeks ago now that Thieves could be in position to capitalize this Rostermania. That looks like what they're going to do. And he also says many. So is many just two? Is that Scrap and Envoy? Is that Scrap, Envoy, CleanX? Is that Insight, right? We don't really know. We also face some unique challenges here in Canada, like exchange rates and taxes. It's all part of living in this incredible city and country. Our organization has a proud history of success. We've consistently invested in the ecosystem with top tier coaches, facilities, live events, and of course our amazing fans. For those disappointed by the changes, I ask that you trust us. Over the last 6 years, before they were even Toronto Ultra, we've delivered unforgettable moments and we've learned that giving players flexibility is key to long-term success. So I guess the point is now they're going to try and do effectively what Thieves have done on some level and rebuild probably a team from a more budget level, try and find some of the next up talent like they did with Scrappy and bring them into their ecosystem and help develop that. So, you know, Toronto will probably be looking to do exactly what Thieves have done over the last 12 months, but it is for now the Los Angeles Thieves that are in position to capitalize. So, yeah, how about this? Ghosty is going to stay. Scrappy is joining as Ghosty's AR duo. That is already pretty damn scary. And Envoy's going to be there on the SMG. In an ideal world, they get HyDra. We don't yet know whether that is going to be possible or not, but as it stands, it seems like they're going to try, obviously, because why wouldn't they? And they probably haven't potentially spent as much money for Scrap on Envoy as they, you know, might have thought they would have had to, or potentially as they would have had to last year if they wanted to make a similar thing happen then. The final question just for you guys is, what happens therefore with Sib? Because the rumor has it that Beans is going to go to Toronto. That actually makes a lot of sense to me. He's been on their like EU academy before. A player with a high ceiling, undeniable gunny, right, Ben Beans. So a player that, if I was Toronto, absolutely I think the guy that I would sign. Sib, however, would probably be the guy that you would sign if he wasn't under a buyout. And that, I think, is the problem for Sib, is that Thieves is now off the cards, and apparently Toronto is off the cards as well, because they don't have the money to pay for a buyout for Sib, right? That's just not going to happen. So Sib, what's he going to do? Is he going to be stuck on Cloud9? Is he going to go back there? Are the boys going to say, you know, it's all good again, right? Because I think HyDra, at least according to rumors, HyDra was perfectly happy with Sib. He didn't really have a problem with him, but HyDra might go. It might be the other guys that are still there that had a problem with Sib, and you know, that creates a pretty awkward environment, right? But also teams like Surge, they're locking up their AR duos. So where does Sib go? Big questions for you guys to theorize in the comment section below, but massively intrigued to your thoughts down there. Hit the like button if you enjoyed, subscribe if you're new, take care, and I'll see you next time.
Biggest regret in your life and biggest win in your life? Give us knowledge, Nate Shot. Jesus, bro. Biggest regret? I would say, to a certain extent, leaving OpTic back in the day was like, in that moment in time, and initially the first couple years after leaving was a really big regret of mine. But the thing is, man, about regrets is that there's no way a man can go his entire life without having regrets, bro. And if you don't have any regrets, that means you didn't make any hard decisions and you didn't take any risks. Like most men, when their times comes and their number is called, emphasis on the cummed, you're gonna have regrets, bro. Like there's just no other way around it. And hindsight now, hindsight Harry, like you guys in my Valorant rounds, I don't regret it now because I wouldn't have started 100 Thieves if I never left OpTic, and I would not have met my wife if I never left OpTic. That means I wouldn't have had my daughter. You know, it's all kind of like domino effect, butterfly effect. You know, things, when you make a decision, one way or the other, it's like you start a new timeline on a completely different course your entire life. So you never know how these small decisions or big decisions really add up in the grand scheme of things. So I don't really have like a biggest regret.